Hello, art students. I am going to show you a few things you need to know in order to finish up your pinch pot. The first thing you need to do is take a look at the lip of the pinch pot, especially if you're planning on drinking out of it, and think about whether or not you want to thin it out. At this point, we're about 3 or 4 days into the project, and your clay has lost enough water that it's really okay to thin out that lip quite a bit, because you don't have to worry about the clay collapsing. So think about how thick you want that lip to be and pinch it so that it's where you would like it to go. Once you've done that, it's time to think about smoothing your pot. Your pinch pot needs to be really smooth before you add anything to it, whether that's a handle or a decoration of any kind. You really do need to smooth it out first. And there are several ways to do that. One is with your thumb, just kind of going over one more time and smoothing. And the other then is to take a damp sponge and just gently scrub both the outside and the inside of your pinch pot. So it's important that you not put too much water on that sponge because you don't want to get your pot so wet that it sticks to the board. And it's also important to remember to keep your hand on the outside as a support so that you're pressing into your hand and not just into the clay. Next, you're going to want to think about trimming off excess clay or evening out layers that are ragged or just really uneven. So here I've made it so that the lip of my pinch pot looks really uneven and too thin. So I'm using a loop tool and pulling it gently towards me to remove some of that clay. The other thing you might consider doing is taking a needle tool and really taking off a whole small layer of the clay if the top part of your pinch pot is really ragged or if it's starting to crack or it's got a lot of unevenness to it. You might just want to just take off one small layer and then go back with the loop tool, pulling it gently towards you and fine-tuning it a little bit. The loop tool shaves off just little bits of clay at a time, so it's a nice way to make more subtle adjustments if you have unevenness someplace, or if you have too much clay someplace on the inside of your pinch pot, like towards the bottom, if it's like really thick and chunky and you want to take some of that extra clay off, then the loop tool is a really, really good way to do that. So next, once I've done all my trimming, I am going to think about smoothing out the lip. So doing a final smoothing either by taking some water on and just using my fingers or using a small sponge. Remember that if you put really jagged clay or rough clay into the kiln, it comes out sharp. So that lip is something that you really want smooth, especially if you plan to drink out of this pinch pot. So just one final smoothing, and then you're ready to start thinking about decorations. I've got some heart cutouts here. I am going to score and slip before I attach them. So I'm going to score where I plan to put one of my hearts. And these are pretty chunky. When you make cutouts that you're going to use for decoration, you can actually make them a lot thinner than this. But it's kind of a personal preference. Once I score, I'm going to add a little bit of slip and then just press it in to my score marks. And that's it. So I'm going to score where I want to attach. I'm going to score also on the back of my cutout, add a little bit of slip, and then I just press it in to the score marks, and that's it. Good to go. So you can see that these hearts are pretty chunky. Again, if you want to use thinner clay, that's okay. Now I'm going to show you how to use the stamps. You want to keep your hands, one hand on the inside so that you're pressing against your hand and not just the clay, because you do need to press pretty firmly at this stage in your project. So press into your hand. Next, if you have some designs that involve carving into your pinch pot, we have some mini loop tools that are really nice because they'll make your designs more noticeable after your piece has been fired and glazed. So they look like this. They basically carve out a very skinny ribbon of clay so that if you want to carve in designs or even letters or words or that kind of thing, they'll just show up a lot better once your clay piece has been glazed. So we have several different ways that you can add decorations to your pinch pot. But remember, before you do any of these, your pinch pot has to be smooth.